Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Civilians blindfolded, then shot dead at close range, mass graves, and thousands more tortured. Vladimir Putin's brutality is generating global outrage, and now President Biden wants Putin to face trial for war crimes.
The Russians are calling the images of these crimes a hoax. Ukraine's President Zelensky says they're acts of genocide. CBN's Jenna Browder has more from Washington.
Retreating Russian forces in areas around Kyiv gave way to scenes of death and destruction. The Kremlin calls the images a hoax as President Biden and NATO allies promised more sanctions against Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Bucha, a town on the outskirts of Kyiv, where Ukrainian officials claim the Russian military killed hundreds of civilians before retreating.
It's war crimes that will be recognized as genocide by the world. You're here and you see what has happened. We know about thousands of killed and tortured people.
The graphic images showing civilians left scattered across streets and buildings, some blindfolded and shot at close range, and a mass grave outside the Church of St. Andrews. This man telling Zelensky he saw 12 people killed who were just riding their bikes or traveling by car. President Biden is vowing to impose more sanctions against Russia and says Putin should be tried for war crimes.
He is a war criminal. This guy is brutal. And what's happening in Bucha is outrageous. And everyone's seen it.
The State Department says the atrocities weren't the act of rogue soldiers, but an intentional strategy. U.S. officials now warning Russia is shifting troops to Ukraine's east and south.
We should be under no illusions that Russia will adjust its tactics.
In Mariupol, the struggle persists where some 100,000 civilians are still trapped as Russian and Ukrainian forces engage in heavy fighting.
I can tell you without an exaggeration, but with great sorrow, that the situation in Mariupol is much worse compared to what we've seen in Bucha and other cities, towns and villages nearby Kyiv.
France and Germany are now expelling dozens of Russian diplomats, and French President Macron is calling on the U.S. to consider sanctions against Russian coal and oil. And today, President Zelensky will address the UN Security Council. It comes as the U.S. says it will push to have Russia removed from the UN's Human Rights Council. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Well, I'm actually amazed that there's still more sanctions to be considered. What part of this don't we understand? This is a full-scale invasion of a peaceful country. There was no threat to them, and they went in, and now we're seeing just the horrors of war, unbelievable brutality, and the humanitarian crisis that's currently happening, refugees fleeing this horror by the millions. So when they go, and particularly when they're going across that border in Poland, here's what they're going to find: hot food, warm blankets, a place to rest. That's what the Ukrainian refugees are finding at the border crossing into Poland, thanks to Operation Blessing.
We are here in Medica, one of the most active border crossings in Poland, helping Ukrainian refugees. They cross all day and all night. It gets very cold, and most of them don't have the proper clothes to protect them from the weather conditions. For more than a week, we've had a food truck and a grill to prepare hot dogs, hamburgers, and quesadillas, as well as hot drinks. It's been very popular since a warm meal isn't always available for those who are crossing. We also provide a warm tent where refugees can rest, recharge their batteries, kids can be kids, and where we do our best to make them feel like home. Also, we had a large amount of blankets and coats that we handed out. This was a great moment to see the needs of the people that we are helping and get closer to them. Thank you.
Well, the international teams from Operation Blessing are mobilizing to help people. Our on-the-ground teams with Orphans Promise and Operation Blessing right there in Ukraine, right there on the border of Poland, all the nations surrounding Ukraine. We get the map up. We can show you all the different places where you're helping. If you're part of the 700 Club, that's you in action. All those different centers are mobilized now to help the refugees. If you want to be a part of it, all you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000, and say, I want to give to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. You can write to us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. You can text OB Crisis to 71777, or you can visit us at cbn.com. Be a part of it. We're mobilizing everything we have around the world. In a few weeks, a team from the Philippines is going to come in. We're going to replace the team that was there you just saw from Mexico. Our U.S. team is being mobilized. Our UK team is being mobilized. CBN Europe being mobilized. We want to help those people in need, and you can be a part of it. How? Just give us a call. 1-800-700-7000. In other news, the ripple effect from the war in Ukraine is hitting the global auto industry, and consumers are paying the price. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. The cost of new and used cars, already sky high due to COVID, are now expected to climb even higher as the war limits materials and strains the global supply chain. CBN's Brady Carter reports.
This rising cost chain reaction created by COVID is now exacerbated by the war in Europe. Slow car production and a semiconductor shortage means limited inventory. And while your current ride is likely worth more, you could be in for a rude awakening when you have to get a new one. For more than a year, the global auto industry has struggled with COVID-related production and supply chain issues, ranging from a shortage in microchips to delayed delivery. The war in Ukraine threatens to magnify the problem and prices.
We're very sensitive because we have no inventory anywhere in the chain because of the comeback from COVID and everything being so tight that any bump in the road becomes a real disruption of production. Either a disruption of production or a vastly unplanned for cost increase.
For instance, electric wiring made in Ukraine, critical to the car industry, is now much more difficult to get. Critical Russian exports could also be cut off due to sanctions.
Because you only need to miss one part to not be able to make a car.
That's led to production stoppages and slowdowns at factories in Europe, and analysts say it could be headed our way next. Industry analysts are lowering global production estimates by 2 to 3 million cars a year in 2022 and 2023. For the consumer, it means higher prices, not just for new cars, but used as well.
Before COVID, the average used car price was about $17,000. Post-COVID, or at the end of, hopefully we're at post-COVID, is about $30,000.
Sticker shock is spreading among used car buyers, hoping for a bargain. 3-year-old vehicles taking the biggest jump at almost 40%. Edmunds researchers pointing out the Dodge minivan and Porsche Cayenne is leading the pack. Families are paying nearly double the listed price from last year.
Get huge savings on over 800 new Nissan.
Dan Bannister, president of Bannister Automotive in Virginia and Maryland, says, well, now is a good time to sell your car. You'll pay more to replace it. On the bright side, you're likely to a higher trade-in value to help with the price difference.
The used car prices have gone up, but so have the new car prices. So, you don't have the rebates and incentives that the manufacturer putting on the cars previously because they don't have to. Like, some of the cars that might have a $2,000 rebate or a $5,000 rebate. You're not seeing any of those anymore. When you come in, what's listed on the window, that's probably what you're going to pay.
More than 80% of car buyers paid more than the sticker price for new vehicles in January. Compare that to last year's 3%.
But if you have the prices that go up and the interest rates go up, then we're talking about a different story.
That's already happening. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates for the first time since 2018, with more hikes ahead in the coming months to cool inflation. This all leaves the future of car prices a bit uncertain.
In my opinion, I don't think it's going to be an overnight drop, but I think eventually those used car prices are going to go down, which is going to probably offset the increase in the interest rates.
Yeah, the prices just are ridiculous, but what are we supposed to do?
Other considerations include record-breaking gas prices, and car insurance could also be on the way up as Allstate has gotten the okay from 13 states to raise its rates. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thanks, Brody. Well, here in Washington, 2 more Republican senators are backing Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation. Alaska's Lisa Murkowski and Mitt Romney of Utah say they'll vote to put the first African-American woman on the high court. The announcement's coming ahead of a procedural vote to move her nomination to the full Senate floor. That after the Senate Judiciary Committee deadlocked on moving the nomination forward. Democrats are hoping to see Judge Jackson confirmed by week's end. Earlier, Republican Susan Collins of Maine declared her support for the nominee. Well, a Biden administration proposal is raising alarms over the situation on the U.S. southern border. Border Patrol agents say they will be overwhelmed when the CDC lifts a public health order allowing agents to quickly expel migrants. The administration recently announced it will end Title 42 next month, citing a drastic decline in COVID cases. Monday, House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy held a press conference with border agents who said they're currently apprehending up to 8,000 migrants a day. Last month, Title 42 allowed agents to expel more than half of those detained. Agents fear the worst when the title is lifted.
We are ultimately going to wave the white flag of surrender. The cartels are going to control our borders, going to create gaps in our coverage, going to cross more of their drugs, their fentanyls, and more of our U.S. citizens are going to die.
3 states, Missouri, Louisiana, and Arizona, are suing the Biden administration over its decision to end Title 42. Well, in another controversial policy move, the Department of Education may soon make discrimination against transgender students a violation of federal law. According to the Washington Post, Title IX, which bars sex discrimination in education, will be redefined to include sexual orientation and gender identity. The proposed rule reads in part, discrimination on the basis of sex includes discrimination on the basis of sex stereotypes, sex-related characteristics, sexual orientation, and gender identity. The rule would create a conflict with at least a dozen state laws that bar transgender athletes from competing in women's sports. Well, speaking of sports, a thriller in New Orleans last night. The Kansas Jayhawks overcame a 16-point deficit to win the NCAA basketball title over the University of North Carolina Tar Heels. It's the largest come-from-behind victory in the history of the championship. CBN's Will Dawson reports from the Crescent City.
Well, the dust has all settled. The last of the confetti has fallen, and with that, the 2022 men's basketball season has come to an end. The Kansas Jayhawks are national champions for the 4th time, and they did it in style, too. Now let's go to the highlights and see how it all happened. Kansas came out ready to play. They looked like the dominant team early, striking first on this 3 by Ochai Agbaji. Later in the first half, Carolina makes a run. Armando Bacot with the hoop and the harm. Hubert Davis loves that. With the game tied at 22, Carolina starts a run. Brady Manek from 3. Got it. And moments later, Manek again for the triple gives the Heels a 6-point lead. Now up 38-25. Puff Johnson off the miss, tips it in. Carolina is rolling. Finishes the half on an 18-3 run and leads by 15. Kansas comes down in the second half, not going down without a fight. McCormick with the slam. Then Kansas after a turnover. Jalen Harris soft off the glass. Kansas cuts the lead to 4. Down 1 now. Remy Martin for 3 in the lead. Got it. Back and forth now, under 2 to go. Carolina down 1. Brady Manek working the glass. The putback gives the Heels the lead. With just over a minute to go, McCormick with an 8-footer puts Kansas up by 1. Carolina down 3 with 1 more chance to tie. Caleb Love can't get it to go. And the Kansas Jayhawks complete the comeback to win the title. After the game, both coaches talked about their love for their players.
There's a number of things going through my mind right now, and even though that the whole season has been, filled with so many blessings, I love the players and I care for them, and they were very emotional and crying, and that's my job, is to support them and to care for them and to love them and to be there for them. And so it was nothing more than just caring for them.
To win when your team had to fight and come back the way they did and show that much grit makes this one off the charts. I thought this would be good, and this is a heck of a lot better than I thought it would be. I don't know how these guys feel about me, but I've never felt more connected to a group than I have this year.
Coach had a great message for us, and he challenged us to be better and to have more pride, and we did that. I was super blessed to be a part of this group. Just getting to see these guys work day in and day out means the world to me. I was glad we were able to get one.
An exciting game, and congratulations to both teams. Gordon, back to you.
It definitely was an exciting game. Congratulations to Kansas. Condolences to North Carolina. It was a heartbreaking loss. But congratulations to the victors, and particularly to McCormick, who was quite the star. I've got to say, he's a local. He went to Norfolk Academy, and we're very proud of him.
It was a good game. It was a surprising game after the half. I'd love to have been in that locker room and have heard what the coach said.
What was the speech? What was the pep talk? Because it worked.
Exactly, it sure did.